In this video, we're going to talk about and compare different types of reverbs, but specifically looking at what we're using them for and what things we're running through these different types of reverbs in a mix. Now, I mix a lot of pop, rock and country music, but this is applicable no matter what style and what genres you're mixing. So we'll take a listen to a small section of this song and then we'll dive in and look at the different reverbs that we're using and how we're creating that kind of ambience and that soundscape. Okay, so this is a really nice sounding mix. It sounds big, it sounds open, and a big part of that is using different reverbs to put different aspects of the mix in a specific place. Now, the first one is this one right here. This is a 480 plate by Lexicon, and honestly, for all of my reverbs, I'm just using the Verb Suite Classics by Slate Digital. This is part of the All Access Pass. And the reason that I like using this plugin for all of my reverbs is because it's got every reverb imaginable. Absolutely everything that you could ever want. Plates, rooms, halls, you name it, everything is in this unit. So just having a one-stop shop for all of my reverbs is really great. It's a massive time saver, but most importantly, the sound amazing. They absolutely nail the reverbs of all the different spaces and units. Now, this 480 plate is my go-to vocal reverb. I have the decay quite long, so we've got about 2 seconds of decay time, and we've got a huge pre-delay. I'll go anywhere from 150 milliseconds to 300 milliseconds. That is to get the reverb out of the way of the vocal, so we can crank the reverb up, nice lush vocals, lots and lots of verb going on, but it doesn't cloud and get in the way of the vocal. Just before this, I do tend to put an EQ, so we're taking out some 10K. That just stops any harsh sibilance from getting into the reverb, because there's nothing worse than hearing really sharp S's reverberating in your reverb from the vocals. We're boosting a little bit of 300 hertz just to give the reverb some body, and we're ducking out some super lows down at 70 just to clean it up a little bit. So let's take a listen to what these sound like. We'll solo all of the vocals. The reverb is set at a particular level for the mix, but I'll crank the gain up while we're listening so you can really hear what's going on and what the reverb sounds like.
I'm feeling you slip away. All I have left is you, and I can't help but think it's true that you're trying to.
So it's just a really nice sounding lush reverb. I think that's the best way I can describe plate reverbs, particularly the 480 Lexicon plate. There's a reason why these things are classic choices for vocals. Well, listen again, I'll turn the reverb on and off so you can really hear what it's adding.
Left is you, and I can't help but think it's true that you're trying to find someone new.
Now, the next reverb that I've got is this one here, which is a room verb. Again, we're using the Verb Suite, and this is from an old Sony 2000 unit. I'm not sure the exact model name. I know CLA uses it a lot. It's got one of the original units. It's quite a short sounding room. You can see the decay is set to about 0.6 of a second, and we've got the pre-delay all the way down. Now, I use this unit a lot for drums, but I like the ambience on my drums to be really, really bright. So before the reverb, we've got an EQ again, but look how much top we're adding. This high shelf is set all the way down to 1.5K, and we're adding a massive amount. We're adding 11 dB. There's then nothing else in the mids, but we're taking out just a little bit of 250 just to clean it up a little bit. So let's take a listen to this. Again, I'll boost the gain up so we can really hear the sound of the reverb. So I absolutely love this unit on drums. It just brings out some pop and some shine from the snare and adds a bit of a nice sheen to the overheads as well. It's quite exaggerated because I've boosted the gain just so you can hear what it's doing. But let's pop this reverb on and off so you can hear the difference on the drums with and without. We really lose a lot of excitement, in my opinion, when we disengage that reverb, particularly on the snare. It just really helps the snare pop. Occasionally I'll run my vocals through this reverb, but sometimes it can just be a little bit too bright and it can make the vocal sound a bit harsh. But it can work really, really well for certain types of pop music, certain types of acoustic singer-songwriter stuff. So it's definitely worth experimenting with. Now, the next one is also a drum reverb, and this is a Bricasti, and it's the marble room setting from one of the Bricasti BM7 units. I've got the decay set to around a second. I do put an EQ before all of my reverbs, but on this particular channel none of that is engaged. It's just handy to have there, so if I want the ambience to sound brighter or darker, or you just want to EQ that sound, then it's just handy to have. So this one sounds a lot warmer, and I find that that complements that bright Sony room really, really well, and it just kind of fills out some of that low end space. Have to be careful with this that you don't get too much of it, because it can start to make the drum sound muddy and a bit mushy, but when you use it sparingly and you get just the right amount of it, it sounds really good. Let's listen again, we'll turn it on and off. Now the next one is another drum reverb. This is the last of the drum reverbs, and it's the RMX 16. This is that classic gated reverb, that 80s snare sound that you used to get. Again, have to be kind of careful to not overdo it, or if you're going for like an 80s sound, then this is absolutely what you need. But in the right amounts, it just really, really helps the drums to pop and explode. And the reason that I like the gated sound is because you can get the explosion from the snare, but then the gate kicks in and gets it out of the way. So you can make the drum sound really big and really ambient, but without taking too much space up in the mix and it all kind of going mushy and muddy. We'll dial that back just a little bit because it was quite exaggerated. But let's take a listen where we'll turn it on and off so you can really hear what it's doing. I love that reverb sound, and having that gated reverb built right into the plugin is great, and it's a massive time saver. Now the next reverb isn't actually in use in this mix, but I always have it on my mix template just in case, and this is another plate, and I use this whenever I've got percussion, particularly things like tambourines. So this is the 224. I'm not 100% sure what that is modelled after, maybe an old Lexicon unit. If it's not, I'm sure someone can correct me in the comments. But I've got the decay time set quite high, anywhere around 1.5 to 2 seconds, and this just helps to add size to things like tambourines, and it helps them to cut through the mix. You can be quite brutal with this reverb and boost it quite high, and it can just help the tambourines and the percussion to cut through quite a dense mix. One thing you do have to be careful of though, particularly with shakers and tambourines, particularly in mixes where you've got guitars, distorted guitars especially, is that they can make the guitars sound really, really dull. So getting the level of your shakers and your tambourines right in comparison and relative to your guitars is super, super important. Now the next reverb is my general instrument reverb. I'll put strings through this, I'll put acoustic guitars, I'll put electric guitars, I'll put pianos, synths, basically any instruments that I want to add some ambience to. And this is the H3000, and it's a hall reverb. We've got the decay set around a second. Again, we can adjust that to taste if we need to. We don't have the pre-delay or anything like that engaged, and it's just a really lush sounding hall. We do have a EQ before it, but again, it's not engaged. If I want this reverb to sound brighter or darker, it's just really handy to have that EQ already there. Let's take a listen to what this sounds like. I'm just going to solo this track, and it should solo everything that is running through it. So as you can see, we've got pianos, that's a pedal steel guitar, we've got all of the strings going through it, we've got various electric guitars, the acoustic guitars I believe are going through it as well. So let's take a listen. I'll turn the gain up so we can really hear it. So as you can hear, it's just a really nice, lush, big sounding hall. Let's listen again, but this time we'll switch between it being on and bypassed. So it's quite subtle, but it does just add some nice size and space to those instruments, and you can dial in as much or as little of that as you want. Now, if you're a musician or you're in a band, if you're releasing music in any way, shape or form, then likely one of the biggest struggles you have is getting your music heard by the masses. It can be really frustrating when you've got a brand new song that's expertly written and you spent a lot of time and money getting it to a place where it sounds incredible, only to release it and it just falls flat. Well, I've worked with dozens of artists who've had this exact same problem, and we came up with a solution. We've created a 28-day release roadmap. This takes all of the guesswork out of the marketing and promotion of your song. For many artists, knowing what to do to promote their song is usually an afterthought. Maybe you've tried a few things in the past that have worked quite well, or maybe they haven't worked at all, and you're just now at a bit of a loss. How do you actually get your music in front of thousands, if not millions of people? Well, this release roadmap tells you exactly what to do every single day for 28 days in order to promote and market your release. And you can follow this and implement it no matter what your budget is. So if things are pretty tight right now, you don't have to spend any or a lot of money at all in order to get good results from it. However, if you do have some money to throw at promotion, then that's great. You can also include that as well. And depending on your knowledge and your experience with marketing promotion, you can either just follow it exactly as it is, or you can tweak it and you can adjust it to your own needs. There's plenty of scope to do that. But most importantly, no longer will you be second guessing yourself about what marketing to actually do that has impact, how to implement it, and also when to start. And best of all, this 28-day release roadmap is completely free. The link is in the description below. Go and check it out.